So today is September 16, 2019. And as we've talked before, we're about to enter this accelerated period of existence. We are literally in the throes of giving birth to a new way of living. And that means individually and as a society. For Saturn represents the foundational structures of our life, of our karma, of what we've created. And it also, Saturn is very much related, as we've talked before, to the banking systems and to the government. And so what we have is Pluto's moving and edging closer to it, eroding all these structures, asking us to reevaluate the truth behind the building of all these different edifices of thought and of government. So we're in a lot of labor pains right now, and I'd say the next 4 months are still kind of like going into labor, and the longer we're in labor, the more intense the pains get, the more of a squeeze we feel. And so that's why I've been really encouraging everybody to take terrific time off for self-nurturance, for solitude, for going in the nature, for being just gentle and quiet. Because there's sort of, if we look around, it's like a state of havoc that's bubbling all over our globe. And it's a tossing away in many parts of the world of outmoded belief systems. So it's I guess what one would call it is a challenging time of redefining our values. And the only way that we really know ourselves and go into the core depth of our own being is when we're under heavy aspect from the outside. It's almost like we're walled in and forced to look at ourselves, which is often why during periods of great suffering or loss, we grow the most, because that's the only time when we allow ourselves to be utterly vulnerable and raw and pull off the masks and really uncover what the heck is happening. So this is going on for us as a human body. It's going on for Mother Earth, it's going on for the children, and it's going on for the governments. It's going on globally. I do want to reassure you, though, that the divine energies and the hierarchies of divine beings around our planet at this time are heavily sending the positive to us and trying to give us a sense of enlightenment and newfound wisdom about the why of the source of this. So we stand, I guess I would say, at the precipice of adopting a new way of living and being, either through external upheaval or through a conscious choice of going within and finding revelation within. Often you'll find that people do not take hold of themselves, including myself, without going through something agonizing or something that squeezed them into a corner or forced them to look in the mirror or forced them to face loss in one form or another, be it their body, be it a family member, be it their house, whatever. So there is a way to work with this Saturn-Pluto conjunction where you say, I'm going to start this work on myself and take the intensification of these two powerful energies and employ them to grow faster than I normally would. That's the advanced pathway, is choosing growth and seeking within without the absolutely dramatic upheaval. Personally, I didn't study astrology till I was 50 years old. I thought it was a bunch of malarkey. And then I opened up a spiritual astrology book by Isabel Hickey called Spiritual Astrology. And she was considered to be one of the great spiritual astrologists about 40 years ago. And the book blew me away. I was enthralled with its accuracy, with its wisdom, with its deep definitions of why I had come into the childhood I had. All was contained within my chart. All the directions were there, all the spiritual inspirations were there, all of the times that I would face my heaviest moments of sorrow and loss were right there in the middle of that chart. And in watching, as time went by, how the heavens were slamming on that chart with energetic obstruction or intensification, forcing me to grow. So I became hooked, and for 6 years I studied astrology 5 to 6 hours a day. I just was absolutely obsessed with it, where being a typical Scorpio with 4 planets in Scorpio, when my obsession began, I had to know everything about it, and I had to dive so deep beyond just knowing a sun sign or a moon sign or a rising sign. I wanted to know the why of astrology. I wanted to know the core issues of why people initially studied astrology, and I wanted to understand the spiritual energy behind astrology. Because everything that's pushing us, everything that is existing, our life form itself is all held up by energy. So I looked at, for a long while at astrology. I looked at the astrology of my children, and that was actually quite revealing and really helped me to understand why they were like they were, why I was having challenges at times from each of them, why they were going through heavy ruptures and difficult experiences. It was all there. And I also saw their relationship to me, because it shows within the chart what kind of mama you have, what kind of a father you have, what was your challenge with that parent, and how did you work it through? Did you work it through? And what transits would come along to help you have more revelation about your life and your soul growth. So I looked this week. I thought, okay, what's coming up this week? What are we going to go through this week? Because everything feels like one day feels like 10 years right now, as you all know. And I realized that we're coming back to the third square. When there's a square, it's a push. A square is not moving and flowing synergistically. A square is pushing. It's an angle. It's a 90-degree angle. So one planet is pushing at the other planet, and it's pushing back. So right now we have this square of Jupiter in Sagittarius squaring Neptune. Jupiter and Neptune, I would say they're considered on a par as far as their energetic strength and impact of ability to affect our charts and to affect the global consciousness. Because what's going on in the heavens right now is affecting the global consciousness. And then we bring it down to our individual chart. How is it affecting us personally? And then we bring it to, say, a certain situation like the election next November 3rd on 2020, which I've been studying and which I'll be doing a video on. Or we take it to this January 12th conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. And Jupiter is referring basically it's in its natural sign right now. So it's ruled by Sagittarius. It's the ruler of Sagittarius. I always get that backwards. And Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So we've got both of these planets sitting happily in their own sign, but they're pushing against each other. So what happens when they push against? We don't always see the highest and best manifestations of that planet, but when squares occur, it's to create a global growth. So Jupiter, with all its personal philosophies, its higher education, its religious beliefs, its religious aspirations, it's expansive, it's bombastic, it's generous, and it's sitting there pushing against this cosmic planet of Neptune. Neptune is expressing as intuition, imagination, the penetration of other realms. So Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and so Neptune right now is in its sign, Pisces. And it also rules, it's not just talking about physical mortal love, it's going to the higher octave of love. Neptune is the planet that calls us to learn through personal love, transpersonal love. In other words, a love for all beings, a love for all of life. Ultimately, the understanding that God, in its own energetic expression, is love. So it's often more related to the unseen worlds. And so Jupiter square Neptune, which has been going on and off for this entire year and is now hitting its third square, is bringing these two energies into conflict. And we could feel a bit pushed by this square. Now we're saying, okay, what do I think is my absolute truth? What is truth? Is there a universal truth, Sagittarius? Is that ultimate truth love, Neptune? Is that all there really is? In other words, do all the belief systems dissolve and humble themselves in the face of love? Does love win out over everything? Because people sometimes say, well, there's an opposite to love is hate. No, love has no polarity. Love is the energetic expression of the divine God force. So what we cling to, right now we're being asked by Neptune, dissolve your belief systems. Don't be stubborn in what you think is right. Let your heart speak to you about how to act in this moment. So we could find, while we're learning this, that we're getting into more heated debates and arguments. We could see it amongst countries. Today we're seeing it with Arabia, Iran, the United States, and the fogginess around all of this. And Jupiter in Sag is prodding us to the most basic of questions. Do you really need all these belief systems? Are you too attached to your opinions to the point that you've created divisiveness with others? And that's the big thing I'm really trying to ease through these videos, is the feeling of standing in your own position and not letting anybody else in, and creating this divisiveness which already is existing in our world and especially has been exposed to be at an intensified height in our country. In other words, we are individual expressions of one divine expression. Everything is that. So while Neptune is in Pisces, it's actively dissolving our ingrained concepts. And I want you to think about, where did you get all your beliefs from? And you will know, I mean, it's not to say that there aren't things out there happening in our world right now, in our country. They're absolutely appalling, that we need to take the sort of truth and speak out and try to bring change. But we need to bring the change along with the energy of love and wisdom. So to me, the highest octave of Sagittarius is not belief systems, it is wisdom. Wisdom is not attached to belief systems. So this is part of our lesson right now at the Neptune square Jupiter, and something we really could think about and work with this week, because this week it's big, and this week things are going to again accelerate. So the treasure within this dynamic square is to find a way to stay true to your own pure philosophies and aspirations without imposing on others your stances. In other words, we need to become more tolerant and accepting while inwardly living out our own truth. So there may be times when you say, maybe I should be agreeing to disagree. Or maybe I should be feeling the heart of that person over there that has a completely different oppositional stance to where I am. And maybe we could start building these profound bridges of thoughts. Right now, we also I will spend a few minutes on the fact that Mercury has moved into Libra and Venus has moved into Libra. So I think we're going to see a lot. I'm just looking at the chart. Today the moon is in Gemini. And so Mercury and Venus are going to move up slowly over the month into a square with this Saturn-Pluto in Capricorn. It's going to start squaring off as a few weeks go by. And I feel what's going to happen is a lot of the redacted offshoots of the Mueller report that have been lodged in the Southern District of New York, and also some of the Jeffrey Epstein material and some of the emoluments cases, and even perhaps Kavanaugh, all of this, because Pluto being related to sexuality and hidden sexual issues, there's Jeffrey Epstein and there's Kavanaugh, and Saturn, Mercury and Libra trying to get to the truth and justice of the matter and trying to create more balance and fairness in the situation. I would say that we're going to find that this is going to be, we're going to be focusing an awful lot on that this week, especially after Saturn goes direct on the 18th. I think there's a long-term goal from Mueller that will be revealed as the redacted material is, you remember we were talking about masks being pulled off. As those masks are being pulled off, I think we're going to get a lot more information on that. Now, I'm going to end there today because mostly I wanted to focus on that Neptune square Jupiter. I have been looking at the charts of Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, and I'd like to go through those charts in relation to the November 3rd election in my next few videos. They're very fascinating. And also Kamala Harris, I looked at her chart today. I spent the whole day studying all of their charts, so found it pretty fascinating. And also which one's going to work with election day. Thank you. If you would like a reading, you can get hold of me at Angelic Mercy 44 at gmail.com. And please don't forget to share this video on your timeline if you like it. And also, I would like to ask you to join up with this series that we're doing. Join up on my page on YouTube. And thank you. I send you all love from my heart, and may we all treat each other with more and more divine mercy, with the essence of Neptune, divine love. Thank you.